Hey everybody, I just wanted to come on here really quick and talk about something that is a little bit hard for me to talk about. It's a pretty deep and dark subject, but there is redemption in this story and healing. And I just hope that what I'm about to say and what I went through can help somebody who may be in a similar position to where I was, and can feel, God's love and protection and hope from this story. So, what I want to say is, a year to this day, I made a decision in my life that was the most traumatic and dangerous and just horrible decision all around for me, the people around me, people who care about me. And I was in a place mentally when I made this decision that I never thought that I could ever get to personally. And I just want to be honest and open about it and how it's changed my life, how it's molded me into the person that I am now. But yeah, so a year ago, I made the decision to take my life, try to take my life by driving into something under the influence of alcohol, unfortunately, putting other people in danger and not thinking about the consequences of what would come from doing this. And from that decision, I carry a lot of guilt and shame for putting people around me, innocent people, in a position where they could have been hurt or worse. And I do not take that lightly at all. I don't think of that as something that is an easy thing to just move past and get over, and something that I've had to really come to the understanding and acceptance of is that not everybody will be able to look past that and see this mistake as a mistake, and forgive that. And I completely understand. But, going back to that time, there was so much hurt and, uh, you know, depression and anxiety and just mental health stuff in general that was getting me to a place of no return, and not being able to think of anybody else but myself in that time. Um, and when I think about this time, it is incredibly difficult to picture myself feeling that way again, because it brings back thoughts and thought processes that I was in that make no sense to me today. And I've tried to, through prayer and talking with people, make sense of how I even got to a place of such, um, such a low place. And with that, for years before making this decision, I was an addict, an alcoholic, and I struggled with that silently, with maybe a few people kind of being able to tell that there was something going on in that sense, but I was never, willing to be honest about where I was fully. And I think that's something that can really affect somebody's mind and their heart when they're not confessing these things that are making them kind of go in a direction that is so detrimental to not only you, but the people who put trust in you, and the people who look to you as someone that, is close to them in their life. And, being a Christian, it's difficult to go through these things without feeling so much shame and feeling like you're going to be judged or looked at lower or different from other people, But in reality, there's so many people in every walk of life, whether they're Christians or not, or leaders, business people, teachers, etc., etc. You can name the profession or the person, they're all struggling with something. And I know not everybody struggles with addiction, but there's something that somebody's going through that is putting them in a place that not everybody's going to understand or be able to, um, you know, be able to sit with them in that and understand it and relate to it. And that's just how I felt all the time, was that I couldn't be open because I'm doing so many things that I want to do with my music. I'm leading worship, and from the outside looking in, to some people it may have looked like there was nothing ever wrong, and there was nothing putting me in this place of depression and anxiety. But the truth is, it was an everyday struggle. When I wake up, just feeling so low, feeling absolutely helpless, and not knowing where to turn other than to God. And when I turned to God, my heart was so hardened at the time that I didn't feel Him there with me. But looking back, knowing that He was, but it was me in my hardened heart that could not allow myself to feel God's presence and His hand on my life. And I regret so much not opening up to the people around me who had an answer, whether that just be prayer or a place they could lead me to talk to somebody. And I think a lot of that also comes from not wanting to get the help that I needed, because that would put a pause on certain things, or make me have to put in the work to get better in a way that maybe I wouldn't want to. And yeah, just from that, there was so much guilt and shame that was constantly piling up in my life and making me feel unworthy and just so dirty. And I, again, since it's been a year to the day, it is incredibly difficult to think about myself in that headspace, because I just never thought that I would ever get there. And in that addiction and drinking to not feel pain and to numb how I was feeling, there was so much just destruction in my life, and how I treated people and talked to people. And, ultimately that leading to, again, the uncertainty of how to move forward and fix what I had broken in myself and in other people, broken relationships and, fractured friendships, and just so much. Again, the word destruction comes to mind when I talk about this, and it's hard to come back from that. And I saw no way out, unfortunately, in that time, but to just end it all and put myself in a position to not have to fix these things. And what is even harder for me, when I think about this time, is now that I'm where I'm at, I know that there are so many people who not only are they struggling to hold on another day, they're struggling to move forward past a couple hours or a couple minutes even, and are thinking of ways that they can take themselves away from these struggles and take themselves away from this life. And I used to not understand that to the full extent, and I still can't understand every single person's want to do those things or their mental health to the fullest extent, because it's different for everybody. But what I do understand is the despair, the darkness, the brokenness of where it leads you, and that feeling of wanting to end it all. And I hope that, my story and what I've went through, the mistakes I've made, and what God protected me from ultimately can lead to maybe somebody seeing this and going and taking the steps, talking to the right people, doing the things that are going to bring them out of this headspace and this thought process, because it's so dangerous. It's so misunderstood. It's so fleeting, and living day to day in the world and in sin and in darkness is so so detrimental to our walk um, with God. And I'll even go again to the people who maybe don't know Jesus and don't have that faith, or that that knowing that God sent his son to die for us, that is so important. And some people don't know that, but even then, you living in a way that maybe doesn't make you feel fulfilled, or good, or um, filled up with genuine joy and happiness. Maybe like addiction, or doing things that are taking your mind away from actual peace. I hope that what I went through and the things I did that were doing that for me, I hope can make some people realize that it's okay to turn the other way, and it's okay to be a different person than you were before. And there's no shame in that. Um, but what there is shame in is making a decision that in the time will look so impossible to make it out of. And that shame and that guilt is heavy and doesn't come off of you easily. And I'm so thankful for God's protection through this. And when I made that decision to take my life, I was driving and I made this plan. And to everybody else, what I was doing even hours before probably looked pretty normal. But inside of my mind and my heart, I was just absolutely destroyed, and couldn't think of anything other than just wanting to leave and go and be at peace. And, I made the decision. I drove into something, and I obviously am here now. So it didn't work. Thankfully, is how I feel about it now. But um, I was ejected out my front window, and I broke my back and neck. My whole body was just in a bit of a mangled state, um, and my head was, somehow, sounds crazy, but still intact, um, but not in the best way, And I thought um, I was going to be brain dead and paralyzed, and all the things that should have happened, which ultimately should have been death from how this went down. But since I'd survived, my injuries and my life after should have been completely different. Um, and this isn't to discredit anybody who works in healthcare, or people who are on the scene, or anyone around that was helping in this situation. This doesn't discredit them, but the only reason I am where I am today and able to operate the way I can today is because of God's hand over my life in that time, and his protection and healing. Because if you could see and know in detail what happened that night, there's no other explanation. And personally, I will not take any other explanation of anybody who wants to try and explain things away, or explain it in a different way, or say, well, maybe this happened, or maybe this person, or it's not anything like that other than God's protection over my life. And it's evident in how this went down. And I will be putting pictures up here of the car and of me a little while after, for you guys to see kind of how detrimental this decision could have been and was. In that time of healing in the hospital, of God changing things, in front of our eyes, and in healing in front of our eyes, there was so much, again, just brokenness for the decision that I had made to, put people in a position to potentially, ruin their lives as well, and their families' lives. And by the grace of God, nobody was involved, and nobody else but me was hurt. And I still, for months and months after, had to live with, this feeling of guilt for what could have happened, and having dreams and things at night when I would try and sleep about things going differently, and, meeting people who have been affected by drunk driving. And it really puts into perspective the horrible decision that I made to do that. And it is so hard to think about what could have happened and how I thought about absolutely nobody but myself in this time. And I just, there's so much going through my head as I sit here, almost to the time as well, around 1:30 a.m. It's almost that time, almost right exactly to a year when this went down. And I am not the same person sitting here today as I was a year ago to this time. Not even close. And what I can admit is that didn't come through only my work and the hard work that I did put in after to try and make up for this and to try and seek redemption for this, but it came with, again, not only help from God, even though that is the most important hand over my life, but it came with people who were able to see past what had happened and where I was, and come beside me and come behind me and walk me through this. And I will never, ever in my life take for granted the people who were there for me and were able to point me in directions to go and seek help that I need for addiction, for my mental health, for my walk with God. And I'd say, the most importantly being my parents, who were so selfless and just, so willing to give their time, their mental capacity that they had to over to me in that time for months, helping me walk again, feel things again, to get my life back in a way that wasn't, you know, going to leave me completely broken and and back to a place of feeling like I'd ruined my life. And I thank them so much for that, and I thank God for placing me in this family, because God knows that if He didn't, and I wasn't with this family, um, I I would not have even made it that far. And that's something else that I think about, God's hand being on my life since the beginning. Um, and I am just so thankful for everybody who has taken time out of their day, out of their months to come and check up on me, see me when I was healing and after. But another thing that comes from this is seeing who really is